Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to lesson 43 of Wednesdays with EWAT. This is your business English trainer, Shanti Kumaraswamy Street from English with a Twist, also known as EWAT. How are you doing, everybody? This is the 1st of November. Wow, can you imagine? October just flew by. So, where is everyone? I hope you can join me. I know a lot of people on the continent in Europe won't be joining me because it's their day off, the 1st of November, signaling All Saints Day, All Souls Day, also known as where we commemorate the dead, the people who have left us. And so it's a time when a lot of Catholics visit cemeteries to pay their respects to family members, relatives who have long gone. Here in the UK, we don't have a bank holiday. We don't have what we also call a public holiday. So it's a working day as usual with some of you too. Hello, is that Zaman? I'm sorry if I have mispronounced your name. I'm very well, thank you. And how are you? So this is lesson 43, guys. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I am going to be finding out what's your story. So that's today's topic of the lesson. Before I start though, I have a few announcements, actually, a few more than normal. First of all, for those of you who haven't joined the EWAT community, like I always do, I'd like to remind you to join the EWAT community by going to englishwithatwist.com and having a good look at the homepage and then clicking join, because not only will you get these live lessons, but you're going to get a lot more exciting bonuses that I offer you, which is a guide, a free e-guide, plus your weekly audio posts that I send to you every Friday, the business idioms every Monday, and of course, Wednesdays with EWAT live here. You'll get the recording, of course. So don't forget to join the EWAT community. It's an ever-increasing, growing numbers of people joining, and I'm just so delighted if you can join us. Secondly, you may have noticed that I have been talking a lot about writing, about vocabulary, about speaking skills, anything and everything about using your vocabulary, your grammar, and your spelling. And I talk a lot about writing. And in fact, I'll be talking about it today. And one of the things that I've just recently done is I've created an affiliate program with a company called Grammarly. Now, Grammarly is a site, a free resource where people who want to practice their writing, want to check on their grammar and their spelling, it's an excellent resource for you. Now, what I've done is it's it's free for you to join, and Grammarly will be an excellent tool for you to add to as an extension on your web browser. So if you ever do a lot of writing in English or want to continue, you want to start working on it, to improve it, to make sure that your grammar is correct and your spelling is correct, go ahead and click on the Grammarly link, which I will be posting with this recording. And there you will be able to register for free and add the extension onto your browser. That way, the next time you have to write in English, then you can just have a quick double check. Because remember, I always say when it comes to business writing, before we press that send button, it's always a good idea to edit what you have written. Check for grammar mistakes, especially spelling mistakes. And this is not just for learners of English. This applies to all of us. And I have to say sometimes I'm bad at double checking my writing. But if you want to make an impression on your reader, then all it takes is that free resource to put onto your web browser and get it, let Grammarly check for you. It's an excellent resource that I've been using for a long time because they also have some wonderful blog posts on writing that I often use as inspiration for my own posts. So go ahead and check later. Hi, Christopher. I see that Rosie has joined, Roberto joined. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. How are you? How is everyone? Now, the last thing I want to talk about is very quickly to remind you about my new program, brand new program that I will be launching, which will be starting on the 20th of November, which is the Business Writing to Fluency Laboratory. Business Writing to Fluency program, which is a 2-week intensive program delivered completely via email. And it's going to be looking at how you use your business writing to become a confident speaker. Now, this is open to EWAT members. So if you're not an EWAT member yet, go ahead, sign up, and then I will be sending you an invitation to join that early bird list club, and then you'll be able to be eligible to join the laboratory. So take a look at it. I mean, you know, there's no obligation, but it's entirely up to you. But that is what is coming up in the next 3 weeks, and that is the exciting new program I've got in store for many of all my subscribers, open to them. But it only takes a maximum of 10 people on this program. It's my first time I'm trying this, so I want to try it out on 10 people. So if you want more information, join EWAT and you will get information about it. Okay, so there you go. Aha, Rosie has just mentioned that I am still in Halloween mode. Yes, I think what she means is, thank you, Rosie, for pointing that out, is you probably noticed my very dark lipstick. Yes, I'm looking rather Halloween. I thought I'd join that, you know, sort of, and have, you know, dark makeup today. But moving on, we won't be discussing makeup. But thank you, Rosie, for pointing that out. Zoritza, hello, Bulgaria. Lovely to see you. Oh, Marianne, thank you. I'm glad you like that shade of lipstick. Hey, listen, we ladies have to stick together and discuss our makeup. I don't know about you chaps, what you discuss when you sort of, you know, what do you admire? The way someone has had their haircut, the way they've shaved, you know, I don't know. You know, share with me if you ever admire each other. Who knows? You know, maybe we all do that. Okay, let's start. Okay, so those 3 points that I've made, I'll be putting those in the show notes on this for this lesson. So in case you forgot anything, what is she talking about? So for those of you who've just joined into the class, welcome, welcome. Yeah, and I'm so glad you got the times right today, because this week, of course, we went back 1 hour, and so now we are on GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. So it's exactly 3 o'clock our time here. And what we're talking about today on lesson 43 is what's your story? So that's the title of today's lesson. What's your story? So when someone asks you that, you know, what can you imagine when someone asks you, what's your story? And I want to explore this, and I would like you all to participate in this, because I want to discover more about yourselves. So first of all, what do I mean when I ask you, what's your story? What is someone asking you with that question? Could you share with me in the chat box? What do you think? Very quickly. You don't have to say a lot, but, you know, what's your story? What is that all about? Share with me, please. I'd like to see it. And I'm now going to refresh. I think I refreshed this page already, but I just want to double check. What's your story? What am I looking for? What information am I looking for when I ask you that question? Marianne, you've just said, depends on what I feel that moment. What your story? Sunil, okay, it says, what are you up to? You're referring to my day, my life from my point of view. Okay, interesting. I love that. Okay, hi Jeannie, Joy, great. Jen, hi, could it be what's my background? Okay, your mission, your vision, your goals, liking that, Zornitsa. Rosie saying my life. Yeah, what's your story? what are you about? Yes, so it's, perhaps we could say another way of asking that question would be, tell me about yourself. Yeah, anyone ever asked you that question? Any story about yourself? Savita, I like that, yes. You know, so what's your story? So in other words, tell me about yourself. So some people will ask you, tell me about yourself. Good. Now, where would you normally imagine being asked that question? Now, don't forget that here at English with a Twist, we're talking about how you can become more confident when you are communicating in business with English. So the examples and all the context that I share with you is always going to be in a business context. So taking that question, tell me about yourself. Where would you hear that? Zornitsa, you've just said interviews. Exactly. Great. So we're talking about a job interview. You're going to an interview, and the interviewer will ordinarily ask you, tell me about yourself. Now, I've written a number of posts. In fact, my Business English Secrets book, my ebook, covers this aspect. And what at an interview are people asking? What does the interviewer want from you when we're talking about job interviews? Normally, we're talking about what? Your career history up to date, up to now. Yeah, so they want to have a background of your professional life up to now. So there are ways in terms of how you would explain that. Not necessarily your strengths and weaknesses, or Anita. Often it's when they ask you that question, they just want you to give them what we would say in English, a plotted history of your career up to now. In fact, I've just been working this morning with a client who called me for an emergency session because he's planning to apply for some jobs, and he's going to have an interview, I think as we speak, with a recruiter, and he wanted to practice a series of questions, and that's exactly what we were talking about, looking at his professional career from when he started, when he left university to now. And that is what, when interviewers ask you that, so it's giving you that background. Okay, now fine, and this is not the purpose for this lesson today. Job interviews, I can always cover this at another point. In fact, if you want me to cover this aspect, then do let me know, and I will put that in and make that a diary date for us for a next lesson for Wednesdays with EWAT. But here's what I want to look at is other business contexts in where someone would ask you about what your story is about. So can you tell me, can you share with me what are the business situations, scenarios and contexts you would find yourself in where you could be asked this question, or whether you could ask the question yourself to someone else? So put aside job interviews. We're not going to be talking about those. What are the business scenarios you have been in, or you can imagine, where someone would be interested in knowing about you, knowing about your story? Please share with me. What others? I've got some examples, but I want to see what examples you have. What are the scenarios? Zornitsa, very good. Yes, competence. But that's another scale, another part of the interview process. Okay, so what are the business scenarios? Come on, people. We don't just go to interviews, right? In our business, when we're communicating in English in business, what are the situations would you find yourself in where someone could ask you, about yourself, and they want to know about you? I am waiting. Anyone like to offer me something? Let me see. Maybe it's not coming up on my screen. Anyone want to share? Startup networking. Now, interesting. Okay, startup networking. I assume you're talking about a networking event. So we are, sort of networking event. So, all right, great. So we're talking about networking. So imagine you're in a networking event. What sort of networking event could it be? You could be at a conference. Yeah, and you are at a conference, and then you start meeting people, and then they, you start chatting to them. Maybe it's over coffee, or maybe it's over lunch. Maybe there's a cocktail party during this conference. So then you get chatting, you start talking to people, and it's that small talk, famous small talk, where you start chatting and people start asking you questions, or you ask them the questions. So great. So you've got here the networking events that you could find yourself in, business breakfast meetings. I don't know whether you have business breakfast meetings, but those scenarios. What about also maybe you are meeting new colleagues? It could be from another office, or you are meeting new colleagues for the first time at a conference. It could be an internal internal event. So in these many scenarios where you could meet people and you are in a social environment, but it's still business social, if you know what I mean. Right? So you're picturing this, and I want you to imagine you're at a conference, you're in at a cocktail party, at a dinner event, whatever. I'm just stopping because Zornichna has just written, it's a part of when you present your ideas for real, starting a new business or even meeting new shareholders, etc. Meeting new friends in maybe a training session, so new colleagues. Great, exactly. So it could be, yes. Now it's interesting what you say, Zornichna, about meeting new people in a meeting new shareholders. That tends to be a bit more formal. Doesn't it? Because maybe you're giving a presentation and then you're then going to present yourself, who you are. Okay, but yes, so we've got two areas, right? If you're presenting and you're giving a formal introduction about who you are, and then there's the other side where you are telling them a bit about yourself. And I'm more interested in that side, about the what's your story. Okay, so let's look at that. I want to delve into that and see what's interesting about that. How can we make that interesting? Now, if I were to ask you, I meet you for the first time and we are discussing, we're just over coffee and we're helping ourselves to a cup of coffee. And then we, I see your badge and you see my badge, and it's like, how do you do? Yes. So what is normally the question that people would ask you in that scenario? Often the question would be, oh, what do you do? Yeah, that famous question that English we ask, what do you do? And when people ask you, what do you do? We're often taught in English in all the courses that when you're asked that question, the question normally refers to your job, right? So agree, thumbs up, yeah? So you asked that your job. So if I were to ask you, what do you do? Can you tell me? If I asked you that question, what do you do? Yes, Marianne, exactly. That's what I'm going to be talking about. You're absolutely right. What do you do? So how would you answer that? Me, you ask me that, what do you do? Yeah, more often than not, most of us answer that question giving people our job title. Yeah, so you're looking at your job title. Okay, now my job title is Business English Trainer. So can you share with me what your job title is? Very quickly on the chat box. So Business English Trainer. What is yours? I'm looking. What do you do? So hello, nice to meet you. My name is Shanti. Oh, great. So hello, I'm Savita. I'm a tech writer. Okay, so you're a tech writer. Great, Savita. I'm writing down some answers here. Great, tech writer. Zurnita Inc. Wow, okay, so you're a national account resourcer. Okay, wonderful. Java developer. Wow, some fascinating jobs here, people. Yeah, great. Any more? Any more? I can't listen. Oh, okay, Gabriel. I'm sorry that you can't hear. Maybe try rebooting. I don't know. Let's see. Hopefully you can hear a bit better if you reboot. Sorry about that. Anybody else with another job title? So we got Java developer, tech writer, national account resourcer. Fascinating. Okay, people. So what do you do? Now, what happens when you answer Java developer? What is the response you get when you introduce yourself and say, hello, I'm Christoph, I am a Java developer, or I'm a national account resourcer? What happens? What's the response? And the reason I ask you is because we often, when people ask us what we do, we immediately tell them what our job title is. Now, some job titles are easy to understand. Yeah, I'm a doctor. Okay, I get it. I understand what you do. I'm an business English trainer, perhaps. Yeah, hopefully people understand what that means. Gabriela, they ask for your job. What do you do? Yes, so I'm a teacher. So you're going to use your job title. But here's the thing, a teacher, a doctor, an engineer, an architect. So those are professions. Those are not necessarily job titles. And yet, some of you gave me the Java developer, national account resourcer, tech writer. Tech writer, I begin to understand that already. Now, I've had this where I've been training a couple of people, so senior people, so maybe a CFO. So the CFO says, so normally a CFO is a Chief Financial Officer. Now, there are some job titles where, I'm thinking, okay, so Chief Financial Officer. I can imagine what that job title is. Okay, so Chief, Head, financial, so it's got to do with finance, and you're an officer. Okay, I kind of understand that. But there are some job titles that are really difficult to understand. I mean, I have no idea what they do. Okay, logistics, I'm a systems developer. If you just look at LinkedIn and had a look at some people's job titles, pick a few and tell me whether you know from that job title what they do. Because I can promise you 4 out of 5, those job titles will be meaningless to you. You have no idea what they're talking about. So you go, so what do you do? I'm some weird title, and you, so the next question is going to be, well, what's that? You either get a response back, or you get the person walking away thinking, I don't quite know what they do. And here's the thing, is that really your story? Is this what you're going to tell me? This is what you do? This is what I do. And I'm the job title. And this is the problem I found time and time again, and we all do it. When we are asked who we are, what we do, we automatically give people our job title. But we are much more than a job title, aren't we? Because my job title doesn't tell me anything about me. It doesn't tell me anything about my story. I'm a business English trainer, so what? Doesn't tell me anything. So what's your story? How can we make it so much more interesting? Because what's the point of this? The point is we want to engage in a meaningful conversation with the other person. If you're going to start with your job title, that person walks away, because unless you can make it sound incredibly interesting, then, you know, what are you going to say? How is this conversation going to flow? So this is the problem. Sorry, I'm getting distracted with some comments here. It's quite funny. You said, what if you're about to take your IELTS? Yes, but is that who you are? Is that who you are as a person? Is that sort of, what do you do? I'm about to take my IELTS. Okay, was that the question I asked? So maybe when we, and I'm not saying that we don't use our job titles, what I'm suggesting is perhaps could we start with that and then continue to explain a bit more about what it is we actually do, to make your audience, your listener, understand it a bit more, to interest them. Yeah, don't forget, you need to be brief about skills and works. Don't forget, we're not talking about a job interview here, Savita. We're talking about you in a social environment. So you're over a cup of coffee, you're at a cocktail party, you know, you're just engaging in chit-chat. You're engaging in small talk. So yeah, you want to be brief. They don't have all day to listen to your entire CV. So let's look at this. Let me break this down a bit more. What I want to look at is not to explain what you do, but to explain who you are as a person. So, when I say you're much more than a job title, I'm a business English trainer, really, that is just so boring. So what? What does that mean? It doesn't tell me about you. So let's see. How can you make yourself more interesting? How can you develop this? And I'm not saying now you've got to suddenly think, oh gosh, what do I say? This is a lot of things that a lot of us need to think about. And it takes a lot of reflection and thinking about who are we? Because this is my point here. And this is the point of when I talk about what is your story. Your story should be about, in my opinion, and you might disagree with me, about giving your listener something that they can, giving them something of interest. Your story should be fascinating. It should be inspiring. It's your chance to show the people, the person you're speaking to, that you as a person are important in your own way. You have a value, you offer value to people, that you have a purpose. And so when people hide behind job titles, it doesn't tell me anything about them. So it's finding a way of, who am I? So these are the questions I'd like you to think about. For example, what is your purpose in your job? Now, don't forget, I'm talking about jobs, okay? Before anyone goes, oh gosh, we're getting very spiritual and philosophical here. I'm not talking about the reason, the purpose we're on this earth. Your role, your job, the job that you do, what is its purpose? Why do you do it? What is your purpose? Why do you do it? Now, some people might say, listen, it's a job. I just do it because it's a job. I mean, I can't get too excited about it. Fine, but there must be something. There has to be something that would be interesting. Otherwise, the conversation ends there, doesn't it? Oh, I just do this. So it's really boring. Oh, okay, thank you so much. I'll go and speak to somebody else because clearly you're not interested in your job. Why should I be interested in you as a person? So hopefully we're doing a job we enjoy. Not always. But there's something, there is a reason why you do it. Now, Gabi has just said, I love working with children. So she's a teacher. She works with children. So, she could start with, I love working with children. I'm a teacher. Oh, fantastic. I get that. Oh, really? And so, what age? So then that immediately triggers a question, I'm hoping, from the other side of, wow, that's fascinating. So what ages? Really, have you always loved it? What is it about teaching children or working with children that you like? And so that starts developing a story about that person. And it's not just for your career development, Savita, this is for you on how to engage at on a human level with people. Because in business and in everything, we do business with people. We don't do business with a brand. We do business with each other. If I like you, I will do business with you. Yeah, and especially, it's that connection. You're developing a connection with that person. So that is what it's all about. Good communication is building that rapport with people. So when we're talking about our story, and when I say to clients, they say, oh, I would like to talk about myself. Great, okay, let's go. And they give me this whole CV. I've done this, I did this, and I get an entire list. And I say, well, that's very exciting, but it just doesn't tell me anything about you as a person. Surely you are much more than just your responsibilities, your job title. And it's a difficult question to answer. So don't get me wrong, because this is not easy. Because often people think, well, how do I do this? Because the thing is, if you are not able to describe what you do and share your story, because you're not very clear what you do, if you can't do it in your own language, you're going to find it very difficult to do it also in English. I was just having this conversation with another client who couldn't even explain it properly in his own language. He said, oh, what I do is really complex. It's quite complicated. And I think, well, but there must be a way that you can describe it. So I always think, well, let's start with some questions. What is the purpose of your role? What is the purpose of your job? What are you doing with that job? Another question could be, what is it you like about your job? What gets you up in the morning, you thinking, I'm quite excited about my job? Not every day, of course, I know that. Sometimes you've had a bad night, you're expecting some trouble ahead, but generally, what is it you like? What is that purpose for that job? What excites you about what you do? What excites you? Is it problem solving? Is it about being able to help others achieve their goals? Is it about, I don't know, learning more? Marianne, you just said it just has to show you're a regular person with slightly messy past, but with a resilient spirit. Yeah, because we're all the same. We don't have this perfect CV. So it's, what's good about it? What is this? So, what excites you about what you do? Why do you do it? Some roles, Java developer. Why do you do it? Oh, it was the first job I got. Okay. How long have you been doing it? Oh, about 7 years. Wow, there must be something you like about it. Yeah, well, I like working with numbers, or I like designing, I like crafting. Really, what is it about it that you like so much? Well, there's this, and blah, blah, and then you start saying, well, so then you just sit down and you think, well, what is it I like about it? What excites me? Because there are always going to be bad things and good things in any job. Christoph, you said, I make customers' wishes come true and give them applications. Christoph, you're the Java developer, right? Excellent. So here you are. I love that. I make customers' wishes come true. What a fantastic profile. I hope you got it in your LinkedIn profile. I make customers' wishes come true. Tell me more. Really? How? Isn't that so much more exciting than just saying I'm a Java developer? Because for starters, I probably wouldn't know what Java is. I'm going, Java? The island in Indonesia? Oh, no. If I'm not a techie person, there's no way I'm going to know what that is. I'm a customer. Really? What is that all about? Yeah, so you go, yeah, well, with my skills, I develop what my customers want. Fantastic. And that is what, yeah, Gabi, teaching has never been a profitable activity. Yeah, don't I know it? You must love it. Yes, you do. You have to love it, but not always. You don't always love teaching. But I mean, for example, with me, teaching, I came to this late in my career, and it was a complete career change for me. What do I love about teaching? I don't see myself as teaching people. I see myself as encouraging, coaching, and mentoring them to realize their full potential. And I think that's what teachers are, is to realize people's full potential. To give people that confidence. I want to make people, for me, it's to feel that they can achieve anything in English, even though English is not their first language. I've seen too many people put themselves down because they think that their lack of English or perceived lack of English will not give them the opportunities that they deserve. So I want to empower them, if we're going to use one of these buzzwords we hear now again, to empower you to feel equal to other people. And that's what I'm about. I could easily say I'm a business English trainer, but so what? No, my purpose is that I want to see people be able to communicate, but on their own terms. I'm not feeding them information. I'm getting it out of them. Marianne, you say molding them on what they want to do. Absolutely. It's listening to them and then reacting to that and saying, fantastic. You are worth so much more. And just because you don't have English as a first language should not be a obstacle for you. So that is my purpose. And it took me a very, very long time to think about that, because, I would just have my little label. When I was in finance, it was I'm an investment sales manager. As soon as you say sales, people run a mile because they think you're about to sell them something. And you think, really, what is that all about? No, I could be just like Christoph. I realize customers' dreams. We're there to help them reach their potential. That's what I'm about. That is what makes me excited about what I'm doing. Not the job title. Job title is meaningless. So ask yourself, why do you do it? What excites you about it? What makes you wake up every morning? I know it's a cliche, but it does, it is important. And how do you add value? How do you add value? This famous, how do we add value? How do we add value to other people's lives? How do we affect their lives? How do we add value in our jobs, in our roles, in our company, to our colleagues? So think about that. How do I add value? What's so good about me? What do I do? Some people, it's very easy to not think about these things, but we all have in our own ways where we add value. And it could be in the small things. And I like people to reflect on that. And most importantly, if someone's going to ask you, what do you do? What's your story? What do you want them to walk away thinking about you? What 3 words maybe you'd like to think? Fascinating, incredible story, well-traveled, knowledgeable, inspiring, who knows? So how do you get there? How do you think, I want them to walk away thinking this is who this person is. I am not a job title. I'm not a label. I am much more than that. Yeah. So I think, it's very important. And there's a lot of introspection, as I say, there's a lot of reflection. And some of you might think, I don't want to do this, Shanti. And in fact, there are some cultures where it is not encouraged to talk about ourselves in that way. No, we don't, it sounds like, oh, no, you don't talk about yourselves in that way. But I'm not talking about standing up and going, you know, I'm this wonderful person and I do this and I do that. No, it's more, how do you engage someone in a conversation? How do you start a conversation, engage, and start talking, chatting, exchanging ideas? And it is a great confidence builder, Gabriella. You're saying, yeah, because you're asking them questions. So here's what I think. So this introspection is, first of all, very hard. And some cultures don't encourage it. But I think if you want to develop your English, you want to engage more meaningfully in English, you want to communicate in a way that is not superficial, so meaningfully, then I think these questions need to be asked about yourself. Maybe you've never even asked yourself these questions in your own language. So it would be a great exercise to do that. I mean, I did this on myself, as I said, and it's hard work. Because you think, what am I? How do people see me? And it's always fascinating. And what I always recommend is perhaps ask some of your friends. How do you see me? How do you see me in my role? Ask some colleagues, maybe some good working colleagues you have. You know, how do I come across? Who am I? You know, what do you see me? Because often we don't see ourselves the way other people see us. So that could be a way to get feedback. You know, there's been a lot of things where I've not thought about myself. And then someone would say, oh, Shanti, you know, you're very... And I'm thinking, really? Am I? I never thought of that. But then when you start thinking of examples, or you ask someone to give you an example, then you realize that is an example of this particular personality trait. And you think, oh, yeah. You know, I was talking to my client earlier where we were talking about his job interview. And, you know, he was saying about how he's always, you know, he was given a difficult role, but he would, you know, find ways to deal with that. If he had a difficult problem he had to solve and whatever, and if he didn't have the answer, he'd go look for it. So I'm thinking, well, that just shows you are incredibly resourceful. So you're a resourceful person. You want to find out. You're curious. I always want to know something. I want to try harder. I'm never satisfied with an answer. So that's someone who's very curious, interested in their environment, interested in developing themselves, their career. And then he also said to me he wrote articles, knowledge-based articles. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Did you have to do it as a job? No, he said, I thought, you know, I would share the information with my colleagues and also my customers. And I thought, well, that's incredibly generous of you. So you have that generous spirit of, I like sharing. I believe in sharing knowledge. So you think, wow, okay, so you are, you know, you see your job as much more than technical support engineer, which is what he is. Doesn't say anything to me about that. What technical support engineer, IT, must be boring. No. So fascinating when you start asking the person what they do, and then they start analyzing what they do, and they think, yeah, you know, I'm quite interesting in a good way, in a way that engages everybody else. So think about, I'd like you to think about this. You know, you don't have to do it. You know, it's entirely up to you, but what is your purpose? What makes you get up in the morning? What excites you about what you do? Why do you do it? How do you think you add value to your community of colleagues, customers, clients? You know, look at the feedback people give you. Listen and think, oh, maybe I'm not doing such a bad job. Because the more we see that, the more pride we have. And as Gabi says, the more confident you become, you know, about yourself and also about the way you communicate about yourself. It doesn't become, you know, it's clear in your mind of who you are. What is your story? What is so fascinating about you? Maybe you're someone who traveled a lot in your past, and that travel has made you the person you are because you are well-traveled, you have explored, and that made you join a particular company, or that made you into the person that you are in terms of the job you do. You're a Java developer, but Java developer is just a top job title, Krishna. You make customers' wishes come true. That is so satisfying, isn't it? To know that someone says, "Oh, thank you so much. You really helped me." So many people in the caring professions. That's what it is. It's about caring for people. I'm interested in, I want to see people not necessarily happier, but satisfied, or achieving their dreams, achieving their goals. The caring profession, you could be a nurse, you could be a doctor. Okay, doctors have a vocation. Engineers have a role. What is it? Why did you become that? What interested you? So thinking about all these things. So when someone maybe asks you that, you have that already. You've practiced it in your mind to talk about. So it's not about, someone said, "Oh, you selling ourselves." Sure, we all have to do some form of selling. Because if we don't sell ourselves, nobody else is going to. So selling not in the way of, "Hey, rah, 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 I am so fantastic." It's just, I have a role in this world. I have a role in the firm, the company I work for. I'm proud of what I do. And, this is what I want to, this is what I can contribute. This is how I add value to the people around me. And this is what motivates me. This is my purpose. Sure, there are going to be days when you absolutely hate your job. All of us have those moments. But overall, there are. Okay, not everyone is fortunate to have the jobs they completely love. Some people do the job that they have to do because we all have to earn a living to pay our bills. But there are positives also in everything we do. And we can pick those. Just to make yourself more interesting. Otherwise, really nobody's going to talk to you at that event, that small talk event, that coffee event, because they're going to walk away and go, "Oh God, really boring person." Why? No, you're probably not boring. It's because you hadn't thought about exactly what it is. What is your story? So, and I was thinking about this, I think, okay, great, and then someone will probably go, "Oh, Shanti, but it's really difficult to start thinking about myself," or "I don't like to do that. My culture is, we're not used to doing that." You play it down. You don't sort of talk a lot about it. For example, the North American culture, particularly the American culture, more than the Canadian, they're very bombastic. They like to talk about themselves. The British, not so much. But the thing is, you still need to show some confidence, belief in yourself. Because if you don't have belief in yourself, then it's not going to come across. So I thought, well, if it is difficult, how about, and I can understand how it'd be difficult to think about this stuff, but how about turning it the other way? Maybe you could think about, if you were meeting someone, meeting them at a conference, meeting them at a corporate event, meeting them socially, what questions would you ask them? So think about the questions you would want to know. If you're someone who wants to engage with them, because that's what communication is all about, what questions would you ask them? What would you want to know? I'm a naturally inquisitive person, and I like to ask lots of questions. In fact, my husband always says, "Stop asking them so many questions. It feels like a interrogation." And I think, well, I'm just fascinated. I just want to know about them. So, the same questions I ask, I don't mind if people ask me, but I need to have an answer to that, right? So think about the questions you'd ask. For example, maybe you'd ask that person, "So what do you do?" And say, "Christoph, sorry, Christoph, I'm picking on you. I'm not really." Saying, "Java developer." "Ooh, okay, Java developer. Oh, right, okay, what is that?" So I want to know more. So this person, now you have to think about it. Are you just going to give me a job description? Or are you going to give me that answer you gave me earlier, Christoph, which was, "I make my customers' wishes come true." Whoa, fantastic. I'll have another cup of coffee, please, because I want to talk to this person. Really? In what way? How do you make their wishes come true? Tell me about it. Yeah, I have a client who's watching me, and he knows I won't mention names, but I remember when he first came to an intensive course with me, he had one of those job titles that I had no idea what they meant. And So if someone gave me that job title, I would have been sitting there thinking, so what does that mean? And the difficulty is here, if you start telling people that your job description, well, you see, my role is, this is what I do, and I probably, you'll lose me. So how do you make it fascinating? Right? We take a customer and we look at transforming them. We're looking to, you know, this is what we do. This is how we create it. Because come on, your job description can't possibly get you terribly excited. So, you know, how do you explain yourself? How do you tell them? So that's a fascinating point about you. So how long have you been with the, you know, how long have you been doing this role? You know, how long have you been doing this job? You know, how long have, well, you know, so, wow, 7 years. So that's a question I would ask. What interests you most about your job? Maybe that could be a question you ask someone. Well, you know, what I love, or what do you love most about your job? You know, God, it's just so fascinating. So Marianne, you're saying not everyone is a good conversationalist. Sometimes it's boring. You're absolutely right, Marianne. So what's the answer to that? You're right. Not everyone is a good conversationalist. So you have two options, right? If not everyone's a good conversationalist, you can decide, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to ask questions. I'm just going to get my cup of coffee and get out and stand in the corner of the room and hope nobody comes and asks me questions. Or I'm going to throw myself in there and I'm going to make myself into a good communicator. So you have a choice. If you don't want to communicate, sure, it's up to you. But you don't really have to be this great conversationalist. But what I think you need to know to do, if you want to be a good communicator, if you want to succeed in business, in any language, forget just being in English, you have to be interested in people. If you're not interested in people, then how do businesses grow? How do we progress? If you're doing a job that doesn't require you so you're, sorry, Marianne, you're saying what I do, I'm asking them things, what they want to talk about. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, okay, let's look at that. I'll take that separately. So not everyone's a good conversationalist. Sometimes it's boring. Sure, there are going to be those people who will give you closed answers. So then that is the reason you need to ask open questions. So how long have you been that? That's a fascinating thing. Can you tell me more about it? Well, there's not much to tell. Oh, right. Okay, so pretty boring. Hey, you're not going to win everybody. So if it sounds like they're really reluctant to talk, then you need to go, there's more. Hey, I just, oh gosh, I need to go and find some, you know, I need to go and do something. Then off you go. You know, if someone is not going to engage with you in a conversation, there's only so much you can do and then you have to walk away. But there are ways, you know, most people will engage with you, particularly if, you know, most of us like to talk about ourselves. So if you start talking about that other person in a way that engages them about their job, not maybe, you know, not asking them personal questions, but about their jobs, most people will, in my experience, they always have. And so, you know, they'll engage with that. So Ruma is asking me, how do you begin a conversation with an unknown person in a party? Okay, so Ruma, I needed to introduce you to my book, Small Talk. How do you start a conversation? You know, how do you go in there and break the ice? Yeah, so it is. If you don't know the other person, there are different ways. Anyone have some tips for Ruma as to how? That is going to be for another topic of conversation. Maybe for another lesson, Wednesdays with EWAT lesson, Ruma, but that's a very good point. How do you begin a conversation? You could, and I'd refer you to one of my posts, and also in the book I wrote, where it's exactly that. How do you, especially if you're a timid person, if you're a bit shy, you're not sure about your English, and you think, oh, what do? What do I say? And there are different ways you can do that. You can just, if you're at a party, and if it's a colleague's party, you can just say, you know, oh, what's that you're drinking? Maybe they're having a drink, or maybe they're eating, oh, wonderful food, and you talk about the surrounding areas. There are lots of ways. And I'll share a post, maybe, or I'll talk about it in the next lesson. Shall I do that, Ruma? Great. So again, so it's asking yourself, what questions would you ask the other person? So what interests you? That's a fascinating job. Can you tell me more? So how long have you been doing it? Oh, wow. And what sort of clients do you have? You know, that sort of thing. If you're not that interested, then no, then this is not for you. You're not going to engage in conversation. You're not going to practice your English. You're not going to be able to do that. So then, hey, it's your choice. The point is, nobody's forcing you. But if you are going to, as I say, succeed in business, you're going to have to do it at some point. It's all about communicating. It's engaging with people. It's leaving an impression on them. So they think, hey, cool guy, or great person, great lady. I really enjoyed chatting to her. You don't have to be this perfect English speaker. You just have to have some interesting things to say about yourself, about maybe what the recent book you read, or, you know, there are lots of things you can do, but it's your story, it's who you are. And that's what people want to know. I know the company you work for. If I'm in a corporate event, I know which company you work for. I work for IBM. Great, I know what IBM is about. But who are you? What are you? So what's your story? So maybe thinking of the questions you'd ask someone else might help you. Then try answering those same questions you've asked someone else. So if you made a list of, okay, so what would I want to know about people? If I'm going to practice this, if I'm going to feel confident in a small talk environment, what am I going to talk about? And what sort of questions? So compile those sort of questions. And then imagine someone asking you those questions and think, well, how would I answer them? Because often when you're engaging, hopefully the other person is equally interested in you. They will then go, and what about you? Oh, well, and then you've already started. But preparing what you've done, preparing these ideas and these thoughts will then give you less thinking time, because you've thought about this. You've reflected about who you are and what you are, and it makes it much more interesting. How do you do this? You know what I'm going to say, right? Write it down. Write about these ideas. You know, whenever you think, I've had a good day, what was good about it? What did I enjoy? Write it down. And then put together a little diagram, a graphic, or whatever works for you about piecing everything together that makes you this person. And then create your story from it. And by writing it, this gives you this visual idea, and then clarifies and structures your thoughts to be ready for the next time you're in a situation where you need to talk about yourself and tell them your story. Does that sound okay? Does that sound something you could do? That's the way I have developed my story. It's creating my website, creating sales pages, creating, having to think, who am I? What am I? Do I say just a title, or do I say more? What is my story? Because your story will probably resonate with another person. They'll go, yeah, you're right. I had the same problem the other day with that client. Go, aren't they terrible? Aren't they this, that? Ah, there you go. You have the conversation going. Stories, we talked about this, didn't we? Storytelling. What's storytelling? It's so people build that rapport. But write about it first. And you know what's going to come, right? If you'd like to share your story, why not join the program I'm going to be doing in a few weeks' time? If you're an EWAT community member, then join it. Try it out. And it's only for 2 weeks. You work on it, you work on your story, and then practice telling me about it in a 30-minute Skype, but everything will be through email. You develop it. I'll ask you more questions. You structure it. You restructure it. And you get it in your mind and it becomes so much clearer. Not just in English. It will also be in your own language where someone asks you so that, you dazzle your audience. That's it, folks. That's the end of lesson 43. I hope you enjoyed that. And thank you so much for your time. I hope I've inspired you to write that story. I'd love to know what your story is. So why not join my program? Even if you don't join the program, why not drop me a line at shanti@englishwithatwist.com and tell me what your story is. But structure it first. Think about these questions. So next week, I am not going to be around. So I'm sorry. Rosie just said, will we see you next week, same time? I'm afraid not, because next week I will be in Malta, the beautiful island of Malta. I'm off for a business English conference, business English teachers conference. And so I decided to take a few days off and go off and visit Malta. And so I will visit you. No, I will visit. Oh gosh, I'm thinking about my Malta trip now. No, I will see you back here. Let's have a look at the calendar. The 15th of November for the next class, lesson 44. Maybe this time we will talk about how to introduce yourself in a party, like what Ruma asked, and how do you start a conversation. So thank you so much for joining. Marianne, Gabby, Rosie, Roberto, Stefan, everyone who's there. If I missed you, Ruma, Rakesh, everyone that I saw, thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful week. I will see you in 2 weeks' time, the 15th of November. But let me know if there are other topics you want me to cover in the lessons. But you take care. Jen, how could I forget you? Ciao, Jen. And thank you for tuning in. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Ciao for now. Don't forget to sign up to the EWAT community. Okay, guys? Ciao. Ciao for now. Take care, everybody.